Lo mejor que
¿Cómo está, guapo?
pronto, ¿usted no?
Pronto, yo no sé cuánto voy a aguantar porque estoy también cubriendo una cosa en el hospital. Entonces, si me llaman, me perdonan.
Ok.
¿Cómo estás?
Ready.
Ready. Que claro que estás ready. Si no estás ready, no es bueno.
Mhm.
Yo, Hashem es el que está siempre ready. Nos va a juzgar con todo,
That's true.
¿verdad?
Mhm.
Ay, ¿en qué te mantienes ocupado el resto del tiempo?
Trabajo.
¿Pero qué es lo que estás haciendo?
Trabajo para una compañía grande de real estate.
Ah, qué bueno,
Hi,
qué
everyone.
Hello.
bueno.
Hi, Ernie.
Okay, we are on
Yes.
Daf Tes 9. Amr Avavim. Doichin kochem anacholim etzel kochem anacholim. So we said a korban pesach, which is a kind of korban that you do eat, that was shechted shelo lishma, not in its right time. We say it can become a shlami. Why? Because it's pushed etzel kochem anacholim. It becomes also a korban that can be eaten, which is shlami. They're not pushed to a type of korban that are not eaten. So the Gemara asks, a shlamim is not the only korban that is eaten. A chatas and an osham are eaten too. So why doesn't it become a chatas or an osham? Ella, doichin kocham and acholim l'choloda. It's pushed to a korban that can be eaten by anybody. A chatas and an osham can only be eaten by kohanim. Right? It's a kochem and acholim choladim, which is a shlamim. Ve'ein doichin kochem and acholim. We don't push a korban pesach, which can be eaten by everybody. It's a kochem she'ein acholim choladim, to a korban that is eaten but not eaten by everybody. Rav Yossi bar Avin Omar something else. Doichim kochem kalim, eitzim kochem kachim. There's a categorization. There's kodshe kodshim and kodshe kalim. Examples of kodshe kodshim are an ola, chatas, or nosha. Examples of a kodshem kalim, lenient korbanos, where it's not only that you can shech them in the north, but you can shech them anywhere. Kalim refers to the leniencies that apply to it. So like a shlamim, a toda, a bechor, a meiser, a pesach, they're all kalim. So we keep them in the same category. Doichin kodshem kalim, it's a kodshem kalim, like a shlamim. Ve'ein doichin kodshem kalim, it's a kodshem kodshem, which is oil chatas or Maski is Rav Yitzchak bar Svara. So if that's the reasoning, Ema shacht l'shem meiser levi meiser. So then why does it always revert to being a shlami? Maybe if you shecht a Pesach with in mind to be a meiser, let it be a meiser because a meiser is eaten and it's kosher kalim. Now, lemay hilchasa. What's the difference between a shlamim and a meiser? Shaloli boy nechasim. That nesachim, that shlamim you have to bring wine libations. A meiser you don't. V'chein lemilke alei below yigoel. You get malchus if you try to redeem a meiser, even if it has a mum. You can't sell it or redeem it even after it's shechted. So why can't we have in mind, if we have in mind when we shech the Pesach, we should be able to, a meiser, we should be able to make it a meiser. Amar kra ha'asiri iya kodesh. Zeh meiser. Ve'ein acher meiser. Only when you're the owner of the animals and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the 10th animal becomes the meiser, only that animal is the meiser. Ve'ein acher meiser. Fine. A bechor is another example, the firstborn of an animal, which is given to the Kohanim. But when you shecht it as a korban, it can be eaten by anybody. It's kosher kalim. So why not make it a bechor. So l'may hilchasa. And what would be the nafkamina halacha? Lo liboy nesachim, same thing. Regular nesachim would require wine libations, but a bechor wouldn't. Or inami, the liyes v'lekohanim, you have to give it to a kohen. So the Gemara says, bechor nami, avora, mimaiser gomer. It says, kol asher yavor tachas hashavet. We learn Gzeir Shava from Meiser to Bechor. So just like we say, a Meiser is specific, a Bechor is specific. Ema Shach L'Shem Tmura, Levi Tmura. Maybe if I have in mind when I shech the Korban Pesach, there should be a Tmura, let it be a Tmura rather than a Shlami. And Lamayilcha, so Lemilkale, number one, to get Malchus, because if you try to make a Tmura, you're over alive and you get Malchus. Or inami lemekim alei b'lo yimach v'lo yigol, it would also be not able to be redeemed. Amar Marzutra b'rei Rav Nachman Amar Kra v'hayahu usmurasa zu b'lo yimacher v'lo yigol zu tmura ve'in davar acher tmura. This is the only way to make a tmura. You can't make a tmura any other way. Ve'em eshachtei l'shem Toida, Levi ki Toida. Who says that when I shech the Pesach, Shalol Lishma becomes a Shlamim? Maybe if I have in mind that it should be a Toida, it should be a Toida. L'mayil chasalatino lechem, to bring 40 loaves of bread. So the Gemara rejects. Mi ikim midi, Pesach gufe lo boy lechem. Umasorim oy lechem. The Pesach itself does not require bread. Would we? The leftover Pesach would require bread. So iachi ashtanami we said now that when you shecht a Pesach shalol lishma, it becomes a shlamim. One of the things of a shlamim is you bring wine libations. So if you're going to use this concept that if the original Pesach doesn't need wine libations, why would the moister get wine libations? So anon hachi kamrina miike midi shemoiser toida atzmalo boilech. Our shaila was that if you have a leftover toida, you don't bring lechem with it. Either moiser da'asilu na'alma, but another kind of moiser, a pesach boy lechem. So we've rejected all the other attempts, other than a shlam. So we said a pesach that's nishchat, without the right lishma, not during the Zman of Pesach, is brought as a shlam. Because it says, V'imin atzon korbano lezevach shlam. Maskit lo Rav Brei Rav Hillel. U'mimayze b'moiser Pesach siv. How do you know that that pasuk goes by moiser Pesach? That was shechted shelo lishma. Dilma b'moiser osham siv. An osham also comes from tzon. Yeah, Amar Rav, Amar Krav, even at tzon korbano lezevach shlamim, davar ashar b'chol tzon. Shlamim is brought both from sheep and goats, and Asham is only brought from rams, which is only a type of tzon. Maskif Ravavim Barchia v'item Ravavim Barkana, b'chol atar atamit. Everywhere you say min, like min at tzon, it's lahot, it's to be mamait. It's only part of the tzon. And kan, now you're learning min at tzon is larabois, that the Korban Pesach is sheep and goats. Rav Mani Yochanami, min is lahotzi. Here we're also excluding the lo'asi ben shtei shanim, the lo'asi ben nekeva. A Korban Pesach has to be male, has to be 1 year old. So we're also taking only from some of the goats and some of the sheep. Maskif lo Rav Chano Bagdasa. Umi matzis amris. Can we actually say the chikos of high that this pasuk v'imin atzon korbano b'moitzer Pesach ksiv? It can't be talking about Pesach. V'hamid ichsiv, right after it says im kesef im eiv. Michlal the lav moitzer Pesach ksiv. Because we know that the Pesach comes from keves and A's. Why would I have to repeat it? So we need it. Because it says keves, l'rabbi says a Pesach la'aliyah. That you have to be makriv the tail, like we do by Shlomi. And kishuomer im keves, it's the Rabbi's Pesach she'ibr shnasa. That a Pesach that is over the year old is not kosher l'korban Pesach. The Shlomim avoy machmas Pesach. That if you have a korban Pesach that was left over and you shechted it becomes a Shlomim, you have to process it l'chol mitzvah Shlomim. So that sheyitanu smicha, you need to lean on the animal. You have to give unasachim. You have to do wine libations. Utanufas chazav v'shok. You have to wave the breast and the thigh. Fine. Kishuomer im aids. Hifsika inyan. Now it's stopped. Limit ala eisha ena tu'una alya. Only a sheep do you have to give the tail. The goat you don't. Break the Gemara v'amei acha nafka. Is it from here that we learn that a Pesach that is beyond 1 year old is Shlomo? Is midavua de Shmuel nafka? We learn that from the father of Shmuel. Damar avua shel Shmuel v'imin atzon korban olav zevar shlamim davar abaman atzon yel zevar shlamim. It's to say something that normally comes from sheep and goats, i.e. Pesach, if you do it l'shalom Shmuel, will be a shlamim. V'akati Rav Nachman Rav Bar Avua nafka. Damar Rav Nachman Rav Avua minayin l'moiser Pesach shekor shlamim. How do you know that I have a leftover korban Pesach that you bring into shlamim? Shenemar v'zovachta Pesach l'Shem lokechat son uvakar. What's vakar here? Alo ain't Pesach bo'alam nakvos b'na'izim. Korban Pesach comes from sheep and goats, not from cattle. But a shlomim is brought from cattle. Ela mikan l'moiser Pesach shedavar abam natzom nevakar. Umayni shlomim. Ela tlasa kroiksi. There's 3 psukim by Moiser Pesach. Chad is she'ibris manoi. It's beyond the normal time of shechting it, meaning not the 14th day of Pesach. And ibris shnaso, a korban Pesach that's beyond a year old, would be not be able to use as a korban Pesach. V'chad le'ibris mano, beyond the time of shchitas Pesach, but v'lo shnaso, and still less than a year old. V'chad, the lo ibra lo zman of lo shnaso, a korban Pesach that has not gone beyond its time or beyond its age. Because they didn't market it. In all those cases, the halacha is that you offer the animal as a shlom. And I need all these psukim, tzrichi. Because rachon echad, faroli v'dran avamina, heicha sheber shmano, shnaso zmano. Yeah, where the korban Pesach is too old and it's not the right time. The idchi mi Pesach legamri. Well, you can't offer it as a korban Pesach at all. Fine, then it's a shlomim. Aval ibris mano, the time to be makar of the Pesach, but it's still the right age. The lo shnaso, the chazil Pesach sheni, you could offer it on the 15th day of Iyar, maybe emalo, maybe it still would have a din of a korban Pesach. Because of tarti, if would have had these 2 psukim, mishum itchiluhu mimil sayu. They're karev shlamim because they're not in the Indian anymore. Let's say it's a perfectly good Pesach. It's the right age, it's the right time. The chazil Pesach, maybe I would have thought that it would not be a shlamim, tzrich. Omer Rav Mishmei mi boik. Chatas shachta l'shum chatas nachshoy. When they dedicated the Mishkan, each nasi brought a chatas. It was not to atone for a sin. It's like a gift. Kshev. So if I have in mind when I shech chatas nachshon, that's okay. Domer cross zois tors a chatas torachos chol chatois. It's a chatas. Yosef Rabba v'komer lelai shmeitzer. Eitz vei meshashel Rabba. Reb Shimon Oimer. Kol amenochos shenik mitzu shelo lishmon. If I did kmitza we have a mincha, flour, and I take my hand, and I take some flour and I clean it off like this with my thumb and little finger. That's kmitza. And then I throw it on into a kli, and I have to be zorik that. So I'm nachash shenikmitzu if I did it shaloli shmok shevis. And the all bottom shmechayva. And the owner, the one who brings the mincha, gets credit for it. It's not like a korban that you shecht. Lefisha amnachas damas l'zvachim. They're different in the following way. Shakoymetz machvas l'shem archeshes. Let's say there's different kinds of mincha. There's one that brought like a pancake, like a pancake griddle, and one that's like a deep dish. The way you produce it is going to tell us what kind of mincha it is. It's not based on machshava. So there's no way to ruin a mincha through a false machshava. Shehi b'machvas, and vice versa. Chreva l'shem blula. I'm going to have in mind a dry mincha versus a wet one. It's maseh mochichim shichreva. It's the reality that tells us whether it's dry or wet. Aval bezvachin and okain. When you shecht the korban, it's shchita achas l'kulam. We shecht all korbanos the same way. We receive the blood kabul achas l'kulam, zrik achas l'kulam. So that's why if you do something without the right lishma, the processing is not going to tell us what it is. So that's why it's effective to ruin it. And it doesn't, the Bailim don't get credit for it. So now, the mincha, the processing tells us what it is. But if its processing would not tell us what it is, then perhaps it would get ruined. So why wouldn't the mincha work for the Bailim? Lema, zois torsa mincha, tor achas, chola minchas. So we could say the same thing, that all minchas, whether the processing makes a difference or not, should be in the same category. Eli itmar hachi itmar, amrav mishmeid b'boik, chata sheshachta al manashis kapir b'nachshay. Somebody shechted a chatas, and he had in mind that Nachshon should get atonement ksheva. Nachshon's not alive, ain't kapor l'mesim, so it's not considered shinu b'ayim. Why Nachshon? To teach me taima that it was shechted for a mace. Ha chai dumya the Nachshon psula. But if you shechted it like a chatas Nachshon, it would be possible. Umayniu or chatas nazir v'chatas mitzvah. That just like chatas Nachshon is not brought to atone for a sin, so too chatas nazir and chatas mitzvah, they're coming to machshir to be purified, not for a sin. So the Gemara says, those are not really chatases. Hani oilos ninu. So if you makriv a chatas for someone who needs to bring an oil, it's kosher, because there's no kapor involved. Elei idmar hachi idmar, omrav mishmei boik, chatas sheshachta, al misha mechuyev chatas kenachshon. If you shecht a korban chatas and you have in mind somebody who is obligated to bring a chatas like chatas nachshon, kshem, because chatas nachshon was not real chatas, it's like an oilehi, and we've already said if you have in mind that like an oila would work. Mishmei the boy chatas sheshach l'shem chatas nachshon psula. If you had in mind chatas nachshon, it would be possible, because chatas nachshon oilehi. And if you shecht the chatas shalol lishma, it's possible. I velem chatas nazir v'chatas mitzvah, which is like an oil as well, because ikar chatas nokat. He wanted to talk about a chatas yochid, like a chatas nachshon. Amarav. Chatas chaylev, a person designated an animal because he had eaten chaylev, and shachtel shem chatas for dam, but he shechted it and he had in mind the aver of dam, or the shem chatas of a zara, kshera. That's not really considered a change in the name. The shem chatas nozlo, shem chatas mitzara psula. Why? Hani oilas ninu. So it's as if you had in mind Ola, which we know is possible. Boy Rava. Chatas chelev sheshachto shem chatas tumas migdash ukdoshav ma'u. You shechted a chatas chelev, and you had in mind somebody had to bring a korban chatas for migdash ukdoshav. Mi amrinon kares kamoisa. It shouldn't be a problem because they both get kares. O dilma ein kvua kamosa. But a chatas chelev, it's a standard korban. Tumas migdash ukdoshav, it's a sliding scale. If you're rich, you bring an animal. You're less rich, you bring birds. You're less rich, you bring a mincha. So Ravacha b'rei Rava Masli kula l'psula. He learned that it's all possible. Chatas chelev for chatas dam or chatas avodah it's possible. My time, huh? V'shachatas sol chatas l'shem oisa chatas. It's got to be for the same chatas. Amalei Ravashi Ravacha b'rei Rava, boy Rava. What is this din about a chatas that was shechted for Tumas Migdash Ukdosha? Heichi masnisun. How do you learn that? It must be also possible. Amarlei anan b'shinui bali masnisun. I learned that it's talking about shechting it for different bailing. V'hachi masnisun. And you learn it that in beginning Amar Rava chatas chelev sheshach l'mishu mechuyev chatas dam chatas avodah zara. You shechted a chatas chelev, and you had in mind somebody who had to bring a chatas dam or chatas avodah psura, even though the other guy is chayv chatas. But al mishra mechuyev chatas noz v'chatas mitzvah ksheira. If you had in mind a person who's going to bring a chatas noz or chatas mitzvah, that's kosher, because there's no kapora. Ubay and lahachi, we asked boy Rava, chatas chelev sheshach al mishra mechuyev chatas tumas migdash ukdoshav ma'u. You shechted a chatas chelev, and you had in mind somebody who needed to bring a chatas for tumas migdash ukdoshav. Mi amrinon kares kamois. It's kares. It'll work. Oidilma en kavua kamoisa, but it's not a standard korban. Teku itna shachta lishma with the intent l'zrok damer shelo lishma. You shechted the chatas l'shem chatas, but you had in mind to do the zrika l'shem oila. Rav Yechon Amar Psula, Reish Lakish Amar Kshev. Rav Yechon Amar Psula, mechashvin me'avodah l'avodah. A machshava, a bad machshava during one action will ruin the korban, even though he's thinking about a different action. He's shechting, and he's having in mind a bad zrika. Why? Because yalfinan mimachshavas pigul. Machshavas pigul is at the time you shech, you have in mind to do the zrika tomorrow. So there also, you're having in mind during one act an improper machshava regarding another act. So do you learn from pigul or not? So Rav Yochanan learns from pigul, and that's why he says you're machashrim from avodah lavodah. But Reish Lakish Amar Ksheira, because ein machashrim avodah lavodah, the law yalfinan mimachshavas pigul. We don't learn from pigul. The azul tamayu, and they both are consistent. We'll continue this tomorrow at shul. What time is mincha at shul, Harold?
Hold on.
5 o'clock?
I don't know, I have to check. 6:25.
Okay, so the Daf Yomi, let everyone know, will be 5.
What time?
5:30.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
Shana tova, everybody, k'tiva v'chatima tova.
Thank you.